Is argon gas necessary to do successful welding with the Orion Micro Welder? That is the question I get asked so often. And so today I want to do a comprehensive product review as to whether or not one should use the argon gas specifically for micro welding of jewelry and permanent bracelets. So I'm going to go through some of the things with you. I want to talk about what is it supposed to do, how much will all of it cost, and how difficult is it to set up, as well as is it very effective, and compare that with and without argon gas. I'm going to do some welding and you can judge for yourself. And then at the very end, I'm going to share with you a couple of hacks if you so decide that you don't want to use the argon gas. And I'm going to include some information below as to where you can purchase each of the components I've used in this video. Argon gas is heavier than oxygen. A lot of when you weld or solder, there is fire scale. So it's oxidation of the metal. So the metal looks tarnished. It looks like soot. And basically what that is when fire meets oxygen, it burns. And so there's a layer of brown on the metal, which you would have to clean. And when you solder, you put it in pickle or you brush it. And with welding, the idea is the heavier gas flows out from the stylus and there's a puff as it is simultaneously to the weld, so that it pushes away the oxygen and prevents oxidation of the metal. And that is the idea behind using that with micro weld. Let's talk about dollars and cents. The cost of the setup for using argon gas. Basically, you need a regulator which helps control the flow of the gas. And this is a set. It costs about $140 US, and it's really good quality. It's fairly standard, and it has two gauges. There is the part that is the inflow from the tank. Basically, it says how much gas there is in here, and also the outflow, the pressure of the argon going into the welder. And so that's $140. This is all before tax. And then you have a tank. I'm going to lift it here. This is a small one, and it is 19 liters. You can get really big ones as well. So I would not suggest, by the way, for you to purchase a fancy one that you're going to use for with special decoration or whatnot, because like barbecues, you basically barbecue the propane, you go and you just swap out when that is full. So a tank you can purchase, and typically for this size, $350 US, give or take. On average, the cost of the gas is, for a refill, is about $85. So I would suggest you do that as opposed to get a custom tank. And for the larger ones, if you're not moving around, there are larger ones, and that usually will last you a very long time. So originally, when I was welding lots, and it was not for the bracelet, I was welding things, jewelry, earrings, and whatnot, and I was doing it fairly constantly. So that lasted about 2 months. So expect that that if you are doing this day in, day out, it would last you only about 2 months. If you were doing, say, 15 to 20 welds a day, so 15 to 20 puffs of air, then it could last you about 6 months. So that gives you an idea. There are places that you can go to get gas. So
it's really easy to do, and I filmed myself getting a refill at a local welding supply store.
So it depends. There are certain states, certain places, provinces have a handling fee, and there are a number of them you can look for. Some of them will deliver, but it gets very expensive with the delivery cost. So I drove, and for this, it was $85, and that include Canadian, which is about $65 for the refill. And it just swapped out my tank. And that's basically what you need. And the air tube, that comes with the starter kit. Okay, so now I'm going to show you how to set it up. So this is how it comes in, and this is a protector. Basically what we want is for this to go in here like this, and you have to be certain to go slowly. I found this part to be tricky because it needs to go, turning this in, it has to go all the way in, and then you tighten. So if you're fine, and it should go flush. If it is the case that it isn't, and you're seeing some of the tread, then that's out, then you're not doing it properly. Okay, so that's what you need to do. That inserts into the tank, and then you have to prevent leaks, use the wrench and tighten. Okay, I'm gonna do it again. Okay, so that's that part. And with this valve, this controls what comes in through here once this is open, and by pulling it out. So normally it has the new ones have plus or minus, but in this case, pulling it out away from it closes it. Okay, and then, by the way, you make sure that everything is closed before you turn and try it out. And then also the other thing is you want to make sure that there is no leak. So this is the tube that goes in here. You push it in, and then you lock it in, and it's secure. I don't know how it works, but it works. Okay, so, and then this tube goes to the back, goes in there, like such. Okay. So now I'm going to test to make sure, and that, okay, so now I've got it in tight. This is in an off position, and then I'm going to open. Okay, good. If it wasn't, you will hear a lot of psst if this was not tight. Okay, now I'm going to, and I can see, this is the gauge that shows how much is in the tank. This is a full tank, and it's 2,500 PSI. And for anyone who has done any sort of scuba diving, that's pretty full. Okay, so now I'm going to turn this, and slowly it will, see, Now slowly I'm opening it, and there is pressure. Basically with this, it is liters per minute flow, and you want it between 5 to 10 if you're just doing that welding. And I prefer less, but you can play around with it. You don't want too much pressure. Basically, that would just, if you're using it and there's a lot, you're just wasting gas, okay? And because the little welds, between 5 and 10, you're good. The other thing I forgot to say is this argon gas is 99.98% pure. You do not, this is just very simple out there. That's what they do for welding, and you don't need anything special. You go to a place that specializes in welding and they'll give you the right thing. Sometimes they'll ask you what you're doing and tell them that's for mic welding. This is perfect. They can take care of you. Okay, so I've got that, and it's really easy. But basically, the first time I ever did it, it was leaking all over the place, and I didn't know what. But afterwards, it's fine. Okay, so I'm gonna test out to make sure that I hear the puff, and yes. So I did, when I was touching, as soon as you touch anything before the fire, you can hear it like that. And I'm gonna do a close-up for you in a bit. The other thing I want to talk about is if you are doing events with welding, parties where you're traveling, keep in mind this is quite heavy when you're deciding at the end whether or not you want to be using it, or try my cleaning hacks. So this, I weighed it just now. It is 37 pounds without just the tank of gas, without the regulator, which doesn't weigh a whole lot, but you're lugging this around and it's not the prettiest. Okay, so keep that in mind.
I'm going to demonstrate by welding gold-filled jump rings without gas and then with gas.
With no gas, 7.5 watts. Here we go. Okay. So this is without argon. So I'm gonna weld this ring with 7.5 watts argon gas. Can you hear the sound? So here's the difference. This side is with argon, this is without. It is bigger, and I'm gonna try to take a photo so that you can see. There is a difference, but this doesn't eliminate it completely.
Now I'm going to demonstrate with sterling silver. First without gas and then with gas, 7.5 watts. Here we go.
Okay, so I know that did it. Because right in the middle, where the seam was, it's solidly melted, and on the edges, there is fire scale. So now I am going to weld this sterling silver, 7.5 watts.
With 7.5 psi of argon gas.
Okay. So you see there is lighter fire scale. Okay, and I'm going to do the same thing, but this time I'm going to add more argon gas. I've just turned up the argon gas to 10 psi, and I'm going to do this again. Okay, I'm going to also do the other side. Really, one side doing it is enough. Let's see, let me just try to see. Okay, so one side is enough. Okay, so this is with argon, this is without. It feels like there is a significant difference in this case.
So now I'm going to weld directly on chain to see what the effect is on chain links without gas and then with gas.
Okay, and I know that took. And you can see that there is the oxidation here.
Now I do the same thing welding with 7.5 watts and about 10 psi of argon gas.
No. And you know what? I just noticed, I was trying not to look at it because I want to film and not use my protective lens. And I realized, I'm going to show you this. You see that dot here? I did not even meet the seam because my hand moved and trying to close my eyes and your hand is moving. So that is one of the reasons why a lot of times it does not work. You just miss the mark altogether. But I'm going to do this again. This time. Okay. So there is fire scale. Okay, so this is with argon gas, this is without. The difference is nominal here. I don't know why that also had more than the others, the oxidation, the fire scaling, more than with the jump rings. Okay, so I'm gonna ball this beading chain without gas this time. We'll see what happens. Okay. The ball flew away. Ooh. Okay. That was pretty good. It's not a whole lot of oxidation. Ooh. Okay. There was a bit of black smoke. It's not bad. It's still a bit, I think it's a little bit on the yellow side, but it's not bad. And let's see what happens if we join the two together. My concern with this is that the chain has grooves. And so when you have grooves and when it oxidizes, or has fire scale inside the pattern of the chain, it causes a problem and it's harder to clean with a brush. Okay, no gas. Okay, so it's not bad, slightly brown. I don't know if you can see that.
Okay, so I'm going to do the same thing now with 10 psi of argon gas and see what the effect is on the pattern and the ball of the chain.
So I want to show you, it's done a good job. It went balling this and there's no fire scale. I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. Okay. Show you. There's very little to none. It's actually really nice. I'm happy with that. So what I'm going to do is weld these two together, and then you can see. Okay. There is a little bit of fire scale there. And I don't know why it happens sometimes and it doesn't happen other times. But there is a slight dot, and I'm going to compare. See, this is with argon, this is without. In fact, in this case, this has a black dot. This is brown, but it's further spread, and this is a little bit more concentrated in the middle. Okay, so remember I was saying you can use an eraser. So this is the one with a fire scale of no gas. So I've cleaned it with this. It's not a problem. So I'm going to see what happens if I use something to brush it. This is a soft cloth brush. So there you go. There's a slight dot, but at the top it's all polished, and here you have it. Now that compared to the one with argon, so that is with argon, this is without argon, but I just brushed it a little bit. I'm going to try switching out to an eraser type, the high polish, and see what happens. I've been using this for a long time, so I think it might be a little bit dirty. I'm going to try to clean it somewhere first. With a piece of paper or something. It has, my fingers are dirty from that eraser, but it does remove the top. It turns into things that are higher shine. Still, there is a little bit of oxidation that's there in the crevice. Now I'm going to try the one with that had fire scale, and my hands are all dirty now. You'll see there is a spot of fire scale. Yes. So yeah, the eraser hack really does work. Now I wonder, you've got to be careful with very abrasive brushes of sorts, because you might take off the top layer of things, especially if it's gold filled and you're sanding it down. Okay, so the eraser it's cheap, but it does the trick. I think the fact that it is grippy, it has taken away the marks. I think the winner is the eraser. You can have the high polish eraser Dremel bit, but I think just good old eraser is the best thing to do. So as you can see, that the argon gas is helpful, although not perfect, and it didn't completely eliminate the oxidation, the fire scale. It could very well be that I'm doing something wrong, or I have it at the wrong angle when I'm doing the welds. And if you have any ideas, or you know what I'm doing wrong, please share it in the comments below, I'm willing to try anything, and I promise I will post it, I'll record it, and I'll post it, and I'll share it with everyone. And I hope to learn how to do it properly if there's a way of eliminating all oxidation. I think overall it is worthwhile if you are stationary, so you're not doing events, moving about. If you are at a spa, store, boutique, I think and you're doing lots of these, especially permanent jewelry where you can't pickle or do other things, and it's on the hand, it reduces the amount of work. If you're doing this day in, day out, I do think that there's value in it. I think this is something good to have if you have the space. Let me know what your thoughts are and whether or not you would want to be using the argon gas. I'd love to hear from you, and let me know